This podcast is brought to you by the Prospect Research Institute, where researchers come to learn, innovate, and connect.
You can go to plan giving seminars night and day and learn how to backflip a Q-tip trust, whatever a fancy technique that they have out there. And that's really good stuff that you might want to know. But what the most important part of something like plan giving or any of these things is actually getting somebody to talk about their estate plans, for example.
Welcome to Prospect Research Chat Bites, a podcast by and for prospect research professionals. I'm Jennifer Villa. Today, I'm talking with Matt Hugg, educator, e-learning specialist, online trainer, and CEO at nonprofit.courses. Hello, Matt. Thank you for joining me today on Chat Bites.
Well, thank you. This is great. I'm really pleased to be here.
And I'm very interested to talk to you about continuing education in the nonprofit sector. But first, I'm hoping that we can start at the beginning of your story.
Sure.
So if you would be willing to share, how did you get into nonprofit fundraising?
Well, I came in it the traditional way. I fell into it. A bunch of us used to joke way back when those commercials were coming on about, I never wanted to be whatever, it was these anti-drug commercials. And we'd say, yeah, and we never wanted to become fundraisers. It just wasn't anything that people, kind of aspired to, at least back in the day when I was coming up through the profession. And I really did fall into it. I had finished a year of graduate school in the sciences. Things weren't quite heading in the direction that I thought they would. And I decided to take a year off. And I'm still on that break. I started working for the Boy Scouts, first in one of their retail stores. Retail Boy Scout stores were new back then. The department stores weren't handling the material anymore, and Scouting was opening their own stores. And that led to a position as a district executive, a professional scouter position, and then kind of from there. Yeah, it was kind of an accident of circumstance that I ended up in charitable gift fundraising, and a good one. I'm really glad it happened.
I noticed too on your LinkedIn profile that you do some teaching. How did that come to be?
Yeah, that was honestly, I've loved teaching for a very long time. Even in high school, I was involved with a program where we taught environmental ed to younger kids, and it's just something I've really felt like I could do well. Well, after my last paycheck job and was starting my consulting business, like anybody should, I was networking and happened to meet somebody who invited me to a network meeting of people who help support nonprofits. And one of the people there ran a local graduate program for nonprofit management that, fortuitously enough, was looking for somebody to teach fundraising. I happened to have the master's program I did complete was in philanthropy and development at St. Mary's University in Minnesota. And I therefore was qualified to teach. I passed the requirements of, they kind of did it. We did a tryout. It was almost like baseball-like, and started putting together a program for them, shifted the class that they first asked me to teach from really what was a grant proposal writing class to, as we know, fundraising is more than grant proposal writing, to a broader fundraising class. And that worked out very nicely, and then taught a class in philanthropy that was different than the fundraising class, and then marketing for nonprofits, and it all kind of went from there. That particular school, Eastern University, had me do this not only here in Philadelphia, but in Washington and Harrisburg, and then in Senegal, Uganda, Cambodia, and Italy. And that was really cool to go to those places and work with students from all over the world. Yeah, it really was. It's a lot of fun. Taught some at Penn, Juniata College, and then Thomas Edison University. And that was Thomas Edison was kind of, if you teach, Thomas Edison is New Jersey's online continuing education state university. They have some programs there like in nursing and all, but it's pretty much all online. Well, if you teach in an online environment, you know that sometimes you'll have a student drop out. You just like, hello, where are you? And they've decided that they think life has happened and they're not going to continue in the course. That's fine. Well, I got a call from them saying, our professor disappeared. It's like, what do you mean here, professor? We haven't been able to get a hold of her. We have this class that we're in the middle of. We have to have somebody like pick it up and run with it. It was a grant proposal writing. So I took over from there, and I'm still doing that, I don't know, 10 years later or something.
That's really crazy. That would be terrible. Well, it was good for you. Got you in.
Yeah, it was nice, and I've enjoyed working with Thomas Edison. Put together some interesting work, which kind of led to what I do now. And one of the things that I found through all these experiences was that there, obviously, and I say that obviously, maybe it's not so obvious, but people have different learning styles, right? And there's some people who really suck up information in print. Some people are more video oriented, and some are audio, and all this, right? And I was starting to develop a cache of playlists that I created for my classes specifically. So here's a playlist on major gifts. Here's one on annual fund, direct mail, and here's another on peer-to-peer fundraising, things like that. And then I also would create my own content. I interviewed the head of Novo Nordisk Foundation one time because I wanted to get the perspective from the funder point of view. I did my own lectures, recorded little bits and pieces of things for these classes, whether it was online or a live class, or hybrid, because I did a lot of those. And as I got more of these things, that was kind of the genesis of what became nonprofit.courses. Because now, instead of a small little cache of a playlist, we got 3,000 videos on the site of all different things of nonprofit work and podcasts too. I think I don't know this for sure, but I would argue to say that I might have the biggest collection of nonprofit-focused podcasts on the web on my site.
Wow.
And in fact, I had somebody the other day, a podcaster, asked to be listed. So that kind of was part of the confluence that led to putting together the resource that's nonprofit.courses now.
So when you're teaching online at Thomas Edison,
Sure.
How is that different from some of what you're doing at nonprofit.courses or some of what you're listing there? Or is it different?
The difference between the videos are great. What I have on, I like to have a broad variety of voices and all that, and that has its place. But what I offer on nonprofit.courses, I really want to be clear about this. It's only one aspect of education opportunity. Today, now, there are so many ways of getting information and putting out information too. I tell my students that, who said that we had to use our fingers to express ourselves through this keyboard thing here, right? Or even through pen and paper. You can now talk to your computer and it types. And that's much more efficient for a lot of people. Well, so is the other side of that. We're able to do these things, get information. So, your boss comes in tomorrow and says, I need a planned giving plan for the board by next week. You don't have time to go to a webinar or a core conference or something. You need to be able to get that information now. Boom, you go to nonprofit.courses, you'll find a bunch of stuff on planned giving. You can put together whatever you need. That works. But I encourage folks to do more, right? To get like a CFRE certification or to get a master's degree, right? Well, now what is on nonprofit.courses can become a part of all that and give you some background and help you with that, but you're not going to get necessarily the rigor you would in an academic course or like some of the things that you offer. When I tell folks that you want to take my grant proposal writing class, that's because you get feedback. We go through a process, right? And that I evaluate what you're writing and I give you feedback and I give you suggestions and it focuses your mind on that thing in particular. And that's a lot of what education is about. It's more than just getting you washed with the information. It's actually having interaction. I want people to go to nonprofit.courses. I want them to binge watch. I want them to tell their friends, but I also want them to move on, not leaving nonprofit.courses behind, but to do other things like getting master's degrees or certifications or whatever, because I think that's really important.
Well, the Prospect Research Institute is thrilled to be listed on nonprofit.courses. And I like that idea, how it's a site where you can have a ton of free resources, which, the Institute, of course, we have content marketing and we're putting out free resources as well. But also you can find all different kinds of actual courses that you might want to take on your website, which is great.
Yeah.
It's hard to find information when you need it fast. That's for sure. And even when you need to take a course, if I need to really understand planned giving, I want some resources instantly, but I also know I want someone else to curate all that for me and direct me to the
Yeah.
right place.
Yep, exactly. And that's what this is about. This curation skills really came to me as I was pulling together coursework for the different classes I would teach. And there's a lot of bad video out there. there's also, but the other part of that too is that there's a lot of really good information that just gets so underutilized. And that's something I really feel sensitive about for nonprofit.courses. I want to bring out people who are just not getting the attention they should be on really good content.
So you've been doing a lot of teaching. You have curated a ton of resources. You've been exposed to all kinds of nonprofit resources. And I'm curious, as a result of those experiences, when it comes to nonprofit fundraising, what do you feel is the most overlooked skill that people should be getting training for, but they don't?
I really think it's building relationships. Like in grant proposal writing, one of the things that I focus on is that grant funders aren't ATMs. They're people. They're people with jobs. And for looking at it from their point of view, having that empathy to say, wow, I'm talking to somebody who goes to work and has a job just like I do and has to make hard decisions. How can I make their life easier by giving them something that they can be enthusiastic about so that my mission can help carry out their mission? If people haven't read Henry Nouwen, he was a monk that has written a lot of spirituality stuff. The book is called Spirituality of Fundraising. And even if you are not in a faith-based organization or don't have that inclination, right, it's really good discussion about helping donors with their issues. And again, kind of turning that around and being almost a counselor to the donor. And a lot of my students have said, wow, this little, it's not big, it's a little kind of pamphlet kind of thing, has given them permission to fundraise because they never looked at it from that other point of view before. And I don't mean to beat up on these folks because we've used the example more than once as the planned giving people, right?
Yes.
But, you can go to planned giving seminars night and day and learn how to backflip a Q-tip trust, whatever a fancy technique that they have out there. And that's really good stuff that you might want to know. But what the most important part of something like planned giving or any of these things is actually getting somebody to talk about their estate plans, for example, and learning how to build that relationship, because you're not going to get to the point where you can do a gift annuity with them or, whatever else, or even have them in your, you in their will without having that relationship. And so that's hugely important.
So I'm wondering if in your experience, you have a story about you or someone you know that had such a great educational journey, experience, class, and it led directly to job performance, improved job performance.
Well, I'll tell you, my own program, my master's degree I was in, it was very focused on fundraising, which I always will tell folks it put me 10 years ahead of where I would have been, because it kind of forced me to focus on the best fundraising techniques and texts of the day and kind of looking at things more broadly. I think it's important also to remember that the difference between education and training is about showing you how to do a technique, and it's usually very focused on some one like micro area that you're learning how to write a grant proposal in this particular style, in this way, right? And that's training. Education kind of takes you a step up so that you get the concepts and theories and then are able to apply those to a bunch of different kinds of grant proposals, not just one kind, like getting trained to do a government grant versus learning grant work broadly where you can synthesize information that's brought to you. A lot of my students, because they've taken more of a holistic approach to their education, have really done well with it. When I was teaching at Eastern, not only did I go overseas, but then we had a couple of specific programs where students would come from parts of the world. In particular, I'm thinking of the African students, who then would go back and apply what we taught them to building a nonprofit where they came from, Malawi or Kenya or wherever. And what they found was a whole different perspective on nonprofit work, on NGO work, because it was coming from them as opposed to coming from the outside.
So if you were looking 10 to 20 years in the future, so way in the future, how do you imagine people getting job training in the nonprofit sector?
The parallel I will use is direct response fundraising. Because back in the day, way back in the day, it was postal mail. I have a copy of Cy Seymour's Designs for Fundraising. It's like one of the earliest classics of nonprofit fundraising. And he talks about, you do mailings, right? Or you talk to people one-to-one. And then as technology has moved ahead, phonathons became popular. I remember a time we were considering, can we raise money through fax? Right? Well, that didn't last long. But then technology moved up. But you can see that the technology, like in direct mail, like movies, right, movies kind of forced theater to do specialty things that movies now couldn't do because, and then television forced movies to do specialty things. Well, now with all this kind of explosion of communication methods, people are going to start finding a couple things. They're going to find the channel that really resonates to them the most in terms of the technology, whether it's video, audio, reading, whether it's on an e-reader or paper, virtual reality, who knows, maybe that'll become something. But they'll be able to find what works for them. And then they'll also be able to dip into these other areas that can supplement it technologically, so that a comprehensive course in some aspect of nonprofit fundraising might include a number of different ways of getting information into your head, not just the one way. And you're starting to see that now. Even traditional, let's meet every Thursday night and talk about fundraising for 15 weeks kind of classroom kind of stuff has their own learning management system, whether it's Blackboard or Canvas or Moodle or whatever. On that learning management system are downloadable texts, are videos or audios that supplement what the person in front of you is going to be talking about. Maybe you do interactive stuff in the classroom. I used to have some specific games that I would do that were related to fundraising. Even something as simple, by the way, the Christmas Carol, the Dickens play, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Well, at the very beginning, none of this happens. None of that whole thing that goes through anything happened without a failed charitable gift solicitation.
It's true. It's so true.
Right. Exactly. And, I took the script and you can just change one word, and I stood people up and you read the thing and different actors doing stuff. Yeah, it took like 5 minutes. But then we analyzed what went wrong, right? Well, that's just another way of getting information into people's heads.
Thank you for sharing today. I appreciate it.
All right. This is a lot of fun. Thank you, Jen. I really enjoyed it. I love your stuff. I look forward to seeing more on nonprofit.courses.
That was Matt Hugg, educator, e-learning specialist, online trainer, and CEO at nonprofit.courses. He may not have ever formally been a prospect research professional, but he definitely has the curation bug. And what self-respecting researcher doesn't love a cache of good fundraising resources? So check it out, www.nonprofit.courses, and if you like it, bookmark it. Hey, if you enjoyed listening to this podcast, you have to come check out the Prospect Research Institute's learning community. It's a membership community with powerful resources, great discussions, and comprehensive courses. Check it out at member.prospectresearchinstitute.org. I'd love to have you join me as a member of the learning community. See you there.